So there's one fundamental that if you have back pain, you need to know this. This is not about treatment. This is not about our breakthrough treatment, because we have a breakthrough treatment. But this is about why you have back pain that's not going away. Because when you have back pain that's not going away, typically you have a problem with the disc. In between each vertebrae there's a disc, and the disc allows for motion. That's what discs do. But when discs start to break down and you have a back problem and you have back pain that's not going away, or you have sciatica that's not going away, what you need to be aware of is there are certain things that you do throughout the day that make it worse. There are some things that you do that make it better, and there are some things that you do that make it worse. The goal is to avoid the things that you do that make it worse. So what does that mean? If you have a disc problem, and we'll call this little red thing right here a herniated disc, we'll call this a disc problem. If you bend in certain positions and load the disc in a certain way, then you aggravate the disc. And when you aggravate the disc, it perpetuates the problem. It means the problem isn't allowed to heal. It's almost like if you cut your hand with a knife, and every time you open your hand up, the cut reopens, it's never going to heal. Same thing with the disc. If you have a tear in the disc, and every time you perform a certain activity and you open the tear, it never heals. So there's very specific things on a daily basis that we do that make it worse. This is called the hip hinge. The hip hinge is the primary most important. When you bend, this is a spine, these are the hips. Very often when people bend, what they bend is they bend their spine. Like when you bend to pick something up and you bend like this, you're bending your spine. That's doing this activity. When you do that for extended periods of time, this little disc problem right here gets worse. So you see, my pain isn't going away. It never goes away. There's something every day I do something that makes it worse. You may not even understand that that's what's happening, but that's what happens. So the goal is to prevent that from happening. We call this the hip hinge. So you have to be aware when you're going throughout the day, is there certain things that are making the back pain worse? We have our patients write in a journal. What is it that you do on a daily basis that makes you worse? When were you worse during the day? What did you do before you did that? Start making mental notes. Super important. Because if you can figure that out, you can prevent the severe pains. You can get it to slowly start to heal. Okay, again, this is not a formal diagnosis, and this is not a treatment for anybody. If you have a back problem, you have to go see a doctor. And if you live in Illinois, come see us. So what we want you to do, instead of bending with your spine like this, what we want you to do is bend with your hips. So you would bend your whole body. Your spine would maintain what we call neutral. A neutral spine is the most stable spine. A neutral spine is without extensive flexion, which is forward bending, or over-exaggerated extension. A neutral spine is what we call neutral. Kind of makes sense, right? So the goal is to bend with a neutral spine. And the way you bend with a neutral spine is you bend using your hip joints, not your spinal joints. Spinal joints will cause the discs to get worse. Hip joints will spare the disc. We're going to spare the stress. That's the goal. So how does it work? You get a dowel. Now this is what a dowel looks like, but you can use a broomstick. We don't have a broom, we got a dowel. So what you do is you put the dowel on the back of your spine, and then you use it as a guide to bend. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's like this. So you put the dowel here, because you have to practice this. It's very difficult for people that never bent with their hips to bend with their hips. So you have to practice it. So how do you practice it? You put the dowel on your back. It's on the lowest part of my spine and my head up here. And what you do is you kind of bend your knees a little bit and you practice this hip hinge. The hip hinge is bending with my hip joint. It's not bending with my spine joint. So I'm bending without my spine. I'm just sort of bending with my hips, just like this. And you have to practice this. I know it seems silly, but it's not easy to do. And when we do this in our clinics, there's probably 40% of our patients that really can't do it. They have to physically practice it often. So that's the hip hinge. The goal is to spare the spine from the stresses, to spare the spine from overloading. When you overload the spine, you overload the discs. When you overload the discs, you aggravate the nerves. That'll cause back pain, it'll cause sciatica, same thing, it'll cause neck pain, shoulder pain, upper back pain. So this is the primary, most important tip. And the tip is the hip hinge. But the really important fact is you don't want to overload the disc by doing things that make it worse. Now here's the problem. Everybody's different. Not every patient is the same. So there are certain activities that are going to make one patient worse and it may actually make another patient better. So you have to be aware of which ones make you worse. But the key is you can't go wrong with neutral spine. Neutral spine is the best for everybody. So you can identify what makes you worse, stop doing it, and try to maintain a neutral spine. That's the key. Now we have a free consultation link, and we'll have the link either above the video, depending on which video you're watching, or below the video in the comment section. But if you have back pain that's not going away, that's what we do. Bulging discs, degenerated discs, herniated discs, stenosis, and sciatica. And it's a breakthrough treatment. We have the ability to treat the disc. So if it's a disc problem, we can help you. We can help you in ways nobody else can. We have a very specific protocol, a very specific process to heal that disc. This is tip number one, the most important tip. You need to learn this. Learn it. That's it. I'm out for today. It's Friday. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Go Bears. I'm not sure the Bears will ever win again, but go Bears. Thank you very much. We're out. Outness.